So welcome everyone to Stronger Together, Growing and Engaging Your Cooperative Membership. I hope everyone is doing fantastically well today on this not too bad of a weather day. Um, I guess spring is finally on the horizon. So that's good news. A great day for us to be together and talk about how to engage and grow your membership. So I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Michelle Chrisman, and I'm the Education Manager at the Ontario Cooperative Association. The OCA is a not-for-profit cooperative. We're owned and governed by our members, which is made up of co-ops and credit unions operating in Ontario and beyond. Our focus is education, is advocacy, and finding ways for co-ops to connect and collaborate with the goal of building a stronger cooperative economy in Ontario. Please join me in acknowledging that the land where I join you from today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee. This territory is covered by the Williams and Upper Canada treaties. Let us recognize the deep connections Indigenous peoples have to this land and acknowledge our responsibility to work towards reconciliation and justice in all aspects of care and community building. So our agenda today, so we have about an hour together today. So we'll explore what it means to be a member of a co-op and the role of members within a cooperative. Then we'll flip the script a little bit and we'll talk about the role of cooperatives in cultivating member engagement. And then we'll touch briefly on building a co-op, how to build a cooperative value proposition and the importance of it, how it can help you recruit and engage members. And then hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end for some Q&A. So, membership is like any relationship. You really have to continue to work at it. But what I'm here to talk to you about today is the idea that it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive. I'm going to share some insight that will could hopefully prove to be useful, whether you're a small co-op with a limited amount of resources or whether you're a larger co-op with a larger amount of resources available, and provide some guidance on some areas of focus that you might wish to examine within your own co-op to help you grow and engage your own membership. A couple housekeeping notes. So again, this session is being recorded and will be shared. Uh, all participants who've registered will receive a copy of the slide deck and some follow-up resources. I have a couple great workshops and exercises that you can take back to your co-op and work on if you like. And I would ask that as we go through, if you enter your questions in the chat as we go through the sort of presentation portion, then again, we hopefully have some time near the end to address some of those questions and have a bit of a discussion. So before we start to talk about how to recruit and engage members, I think it's important to start by defining your goals. So every co-op is so different and will have different needs when it comes to membership. So setting goals and defining what member engagement looks like in your co-op will be an exercise that's unique to you. We want to start by understanding our current reality. So where are you now? How involved are your members right now? What's working and what's not? And what kinds of engagement do you need from your members? So where are the gaps? Next, taking a look at, where do you want to be? So what does strong member engagement look like for your co-op? Do you need more members attending meetings, taking leadership roles, maybe taking a more active role on the board, or maybe just using your co-op's services more often? So think about how you will know you've been successful and how you'll track the results of your efforts. So you can't reach a goal if you can't visualize it. So identifying those two core ideas, where are we now? what's working, what's not, and where do we want to be will help you identify those gaps and better reach your goal. So we'll start with the role of members. So co-ops may call their owners just that, owners. Some of us do. But some co-ops refer to their owners as members. And why do they do that? Because owners actively participate in the business rather than just investing in it or using its services. So co-ops and their members have more of a reciprocal relationship. It's more than just transactional, um, unlike traditional corporations that we're used to seeing. So members have a pivotal role in cooperatives. So co-ops are member owned, which means the people who own and finance the co-op are the same people that use the co-op. Co-ops are member controlled. So they're controlled by the same people that are using the services of the co-op. And this is achieved through the unique democratic governance system that co-ops operate within. And co-ops have a primary purpose of benefiting their members. They exist to provide and distribute benefits to their owners on the basis of their use. And every single one of the co-ops represented here today, through all of you, started because a group of people came together to fill a need for themselves for something. And they decided to tackle this problem collectively. So we can't lose sight of that. So your organization may have grown. It might look very different. It might look the same. Maybe you're just starting your cooperative journey. But regardless of where you are in your journey, regardless of your size or what industry you operate in, these three truths stand. You are a co-op and you exist because of your members. So today is about talking about how to help your members understand that if they don't already, and increase their engagement in your cooperative. So members have a vital role to play in supporting the co-op business, both through both financially and through governance. So in terms of financial responsibilities, members need to contribute to the financial capital of the co-op. The two most common ways they do this is through membership fees and through patronage, so using the co-op. In a housing co-op, this means paying monthly housing charges. In a consumer co-op, it's buying goods and services. And in a producer co-op, it might be selling their products to the co-op. In terms of governance responsibilities, members participate in the running of the co-op, and they do this in different ways. For example, it might be as something as simple as reading monthly newsletters or following you on social media, or it might be attending the AGM once a year, or it might be more involved, something like serving on the board or serving on a committee. And members should also communicate their needs and point out areas where the co-op could be doing something better. And in return, the co-op should be responsive to that feedback from your members. As you begin mapping your own specific goals and outcomes for member engagement, thinking about those two areas in terms of these two categories, both financial and governance support, might be helpful. So my challenge to you is to think about how you're communicating these core ideas to your members, that need for both financial participation and governance participation. And again, membership is reciprocal, benefits both the members and the co-op. You can't have one without the other. So members support the operation of the co-op through financial and governance participation. And the co-op in turn benefits the members by providing them with the products and services that they want. So a really important piece of increasing member engagement is ensuring that both the leadership of the co-op and the members themselves understand and respect this relationship. It is imperative that members understand their role in the co-op and how what they do or don't do impacts the operation and success of the co-op. Because if they cannot connect the dots between their input and, the ways they're interacting with the co-op and the success of the co-op, there is no real reason for them to step up. And so you're never going to get the engagement you want from your members. Our world is really shaped by that top-down business model idea. That's what most people see reflected in our economy, in the media, in society, in schools. And co-ops offer a different path, and it's one where the actors aren't just customers or workers or producers, but they're actually shared owners as well. And this can be hard to grasp. There is no single boss. Instead, everyone shares responsibility, agency, and accountability. People are used to two main ways of thinking about work and business, right? Either you work for someone else and you answer to a boss, or you're the boss and other people work for you. So many co-ops struggle with member recruitment and engagement. And one of the causes that we hear a lot is because the co-op model is just unfamiliar. So why does this matter? Well, this presents a challenge in terms of the members really understanding their role and their relevance. And also at the governance and management level, this can pose challenges when we're talking about, larger, more complex co-ops that might need to look outside the sector to bring in directors or leadership, key staff members with specific skills or knowledge. Because if you're new to the co-op sector, that whole concept of members as literal owners of the business and that idea that members should be encouraged to get involved, to ask questions, to participate, it's very different from what many people are used to. And when we look at smaller co-ops, as new members join, those new members may worry about the risks and responsibilities of becoming a member. It might be hard to take a leap between prospective members and actual members. They might be intimidated by the extra demands beyond those day-to-day tasks required. They might be overwhelmed by the idea of that extra responsibility. Even that idea that no one is the boss and that everyone needs to pitch in and participate and take an active role. That can be tough for people to wrap their head around. So often this leads to difficulty engaging members in that more practical side of membership and ownership. And going back to those large co-ops, often members might feel too distanced from any kind of meaningful engagement. Um, so thinking about how to create opportunities for meaningful engagement is really important. And members of small co-ops, again, they might feel overwhelmed or intimidated by those added responsibilities and maybe their own lack of experience as entrepreneurs. So guiding them through that process and getting continual feedback from them as to where they're at is really important. There's so many success stories in the co-op sector and even a few failures as well that remind us that the success of a co-op is not just about sound business practices, but it's also dependent on a membership that understands and is invested in its role in the success of the co-op. So what's the takeaway here? So part of our job as co-ops, beyond just recruiting members and conducting our daily business, is acknowledging this learning curve and giving people at all levels of our organization the space and the tools to unlearn some of the dominant ideas about how business works and to learn what it means to build something collectively and work cooperatively. So let's set the stage for success. We'll take a look at an example of a co-op who's really doing an excellent job of balancing that business operations with the cooperative culture. So Arctic Co-op is a result of a merger of two cooperative federations. They represent Inuit artists and sell Inuit art. They do retail and service. They sell fuel, TV, groceries, general merchandise. They also do really specific, address specific needs in more remote regions like postal services and banking, local transportation, even coffee shops. So their revenue in 2020 was over 250 million, and their patronage returns were over 10 million in 2020. They employ 900 people in the Arctic and another 250 at their home office in Winnipeg. They're the second largest employer of Inuit, Dene, and First Nation people in Northern Canada. First is the government. So Arctic Co-op truly understands the assignment, which is to serve the needs of their members, whatever they may be, and however they evolve. I would encourage you to read this case study yourself after this session, and there's a link to the case study on this slide that you can click on. So let's take a look at just a few things that they're doing really well. So number one, meaningful engagement. So members serving robust and active roles within the co-op. They're finding meaningful ways for member communication and participation. So meaningful ways of communication, right? So that means listening, being responsive to member feedback, and finding opportunities where members can actually see the impact of their contributions. They send at least one board member and one staff member to attend the AGMs of all of their individual member co-ops. They often send new staff leaders to remote member communities to learn more about what it's like to live and work in the North. And they also have a resolution committee. So each year, their member co-ops are encouraged to propose resolutions to improve the co-op each year. And they have a process in place and a committee to continually ensure that they are listening to their members, they're being responsive, and they're acting based on the needs and wants of their members. Another thing they do really well is communication, and that is so important. They have dedicated roles for member communication. They do intentional outreach. They're proactive in communicating with members and encourage participation in their quarterly, annual meetings, in trainings, in AGMs, both by members, by the co-op board, by their staff. And they offer plenty of options for open communication. Another key area where Arctic Co-op really shines is flexibility. So understanding and listening to the differing needs of members and working with members to find ways to support their needs, whether it's a common need or it's unique to a smaller group. And in the case study, they talk about the idea of not looking for 32 different solutions, but finding solutions that might work 32 different ways. Another key area where Arctic Co-op excels is their focus on authenticity, on representation, inclusion, and diversity. So that means hiring staff that have lived experience in the communities that the co-op serves, providing language accommodations, and at its heart, having a respect for the rich cultural diversity of the communities that they serve. They ensure to include voices and representation from all member service areas in their decision-making process. so that the co-op reflects the voice of all members, not just a select few. Arctic Co-op ensures they have strong governance practices in place. And a lot of that centers on education and training. It means that communicating that the ways in which operations and governance are different, yet sharing a common view of mission and member service that align them. That idea that an effective board supports effective management and vice versa. And one thing I love about Arctic Co-op and respect very much is that training and education is never cut back on. Even during economic downturns, they challenge their leaders to find other ways of balancing their budgets. And, their key staff get training in core skills, policies, procedures, but also in co-op identity. Another thing Arctic Co-op does well is they really embrace a holistic view. So they practice care for all of their stakeholders. And it's that idea of, if we look after our employees, we'll do better for our membership, and membership is what we're focused on. Members of members, staff, boards, delegates, everyone's needs are represented and considered within the cooperative. And lastly, cultivating a culture of trust and cooperativeness through formal and informal communication channels, through transparency, sharing information, really encouraging questions, and engaging different stakeholders. They're able to build this culture of cooperativeness. The case study says, rather than pulling away from its cooperative identity as it has grown, Arctic Cooperatives, under the leadership team of Vice President for Corporate Services, Mary Nerlin-Guylick, and her colleagues, have taken steps to further enhance the internal understanding of their cooperative identity and improve both structures and practice of member engagement. Cooperative education outcomes have been added to the balanced scorecard, for example, meaning performance is formally linked to the success of learning. So we can look to Arctic Co-ops as a great example of how leaning into your cooperative nature results in an organization that is better poised to leverage the strength of their membership, resulting in a stronger and more sustainable business. So here's a summary of those points that we talked about. So it's, meaningful participation. So what kind of opportunities are you providing for your members to see the impact of their participation? Strong communication, proactive communication, gathering feedback, responding to members in a positive way. Having flexible options, different ways for members to engage with the co-op, authenticity, representation, and inclusion. So making sure all the voices in your co-op are represented when it comes to decision making. The importance of education and training. Caring for all stakeholders. And again, listening to all those different voices and understanding how they all work together and support all the different actors within a cooperative, and cultivating that cooperative culture, right? So it's not a one and done thing. It's talked about at onboarding or talked about once a year at an AGM. What are you doing every day, or what are you doing on a regular basis to communicate those cooperative principles and values and remind members of their role and of their importance within a cooperative? So I'm going to take a minute here. I actually have a poll, and it's anonymous. So I'd like to my hope is that it's going to prompt you to start thinking about these different areas and how you might be doing in each of them. So I'm going to ask you to rate your co-op and how well you think it's doing um, in these different areas. And then after today's session, I'm going to share a worksheet that you can use to explore these focus areas a little deeper on your own time, or even better with your members of your co-op or your team. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone just a couple minutes here just to think about these different areas. And I know it's kind of a lot to kind of throw at you all at once. But again, it's that idea of some of those core ideas and thinking about what you're doing right now in these different areas. So I'm just going to give everyone about just a couple minutes. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so all right, so I appreciate everyone who's participated in this poll. I'm going to end it now. Um, and again, um, I'm going to share a workshop with you where you can take a little bit of a deeper dive and investigate these good membership practices a little bit deeper. Okay. So it looks like we have some room to grow as I go through the poll results, and that's fantastic. And it's great that you're here today. I think that's a great place to start. So when we're thinking about member engagement and that relationship that you have with members, I think it's really important to acknowledge that members join co-ops for different reasons. So, some members join a co-op because they just want to use the products and services of the co-op. Some join because they're looking for a job that allows them more ownership and autonomy over the work that they do. You may have members that want to support their local economy. You might be lucky and have some members that join because they're familiar with the democratic nature of co-ops, right? So they're interested in really being involved in governance. And you know what? Some members will join and they won't even know they're part of a co-op or what that means. And that's okay. And of course, it's an ever evolving relationships. So levels of engagement or reasons for joining or staying may change over time. Accepting that you're never going to engage every single member in the same way, and that's okay, or on the same level, and that it's really impossible to meet every single need for every member, but it speaks to the importance of having different ways in place for different members with different goals to engage on the level that appeals to them at that time. Couple this with strong communication, and that can allow you to cultivate that sense of ownership and loyalty with your members, no matter how they engage with you. Okay, so let's take a look at different ways that members might engage with your co-op. So I've got a little hands-on activity here. So I'm going to ask that if you look at the bar, it should be at the bottom and you see annotate. You can click on that and then you can actually write right on the screen. So, when I think about levels of engagement, we kind of think about three different levels, and I like to think of it as informed, engaged, and empowered. And Brian from SolarShare, I know you're here, and we talked about this as well. So, and kind of help to frame those different levels of engagement. So, again, this is going to differ depending on the size and structure of your co-op. Um, but we're looking at what kind of ways can you engage your members to keep them informed about what's going on, about their role in the co-op. And then how can you step that up a little bit and maybe get them to actively participate a little bit? And then how can you help members feel really empowered, um, and play a bigger role and take on some leadership within your co-op? So I would invite anyone who's brave enough to use annotate. You can write right on the screen, or you can put your answers in the chat, and I'm happy to, oh, amazing, wonderful. And I'm happy to translate and move anything I see in the chat onto our little board here. So we'll just do this for um, a couple minutes. And I think when you annotate, you should have an option for drawing and typing to make it a little bit easier. So I see John's writing social media. Thank you, John. Um, Membership surveys, AGMs, newsletters or emails. Amazing. What else can we think about? Yeah, voting, definitely. Thank you, John. Resource group participation, board of directors participation. Amazing. Yeah, member barbecues. Yeah, that's fantastic. Member events. You know, the co-op is a substantial company player in their community. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? Raising that awareness in your community is so important. Yep, the website. So engaging them through a website, posting information on there, keeping it fresh, using blogs, things like that. Amazing. Ambassador programs, that's a great one. Oh, member appreciation, community volunteer opportunities. Oh, we're getting some fantastic answers here. Amazing. And can I see, like, can I get a thumbs up from people who have done some or all of these um, different activities? See some thumbs up. Awesome. That's great to see. Fantastic. Okay. Fantastic. That's amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this. So I think I'm gonna clear. Whoops. See if this is gonna clear for me. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. So here's some ideas I put together, and I think some of these were definitely captured. So here's a few more ideas. So keeping your membership informed. So things like reading, encouraging them to read the annual report, making sure it's available, they know where to find it, reviewing the financials, reading communications, like those member e-blasts you send out, following and engaging with you on social media. Making sure they know their rights as a member and their role and responsibility. So how are you communicating those things to their members and to help them get informed about what membership means, what their role is, and what their responsibilities are. And again, whether you're a large or small co-op, the first step to engagement is getting your members interested in learning about your co-op, right? Their role, the expectations, um, the history of your co-op, the story, your mission, what does it mean to be a member? What do you do for the community? And then how does their involvement impact or contribute to the co-op? So be very clear about that. Help them connect those dots. And this is something to think about if you're maybe a smaller co-op or a worker co-op, hiring employees that you hope will transition to membership. Having a plan in place to gradually introduce that co-op knowledge might be beneficial. So getting them informed is a great place to start without overwhelming them. And with a larger co-op, um, follow up is key. So again, providing easy to understand, bite-sized, relevant information and specific actions that members can follow, ways that they can get involved, can really help get them informed and sort of spark that interest. A more engaged member activities might look like attending AGMs and member events, volunteer appreciation events, barbecues were mentioned, voting at AGMs, volunteering, attending workshops and training like this, and giving feedback to the co-op. And then when we really look at what it means to be an empowered member, we're looking at things like serving on the board, running for a board position, leading committees, engaging in member relations, heard ambassador program mentioned, things like that can really help create leadership within your organization. So I know when you look at all of this, it might look like a lot, but any and all levels of engagement matter. And all member involvement contributes towards the success of your co-op. So having options available from each of these categories offers a pathway to deeper engagement that can make it easier for members to level up. And then laying out a pathway within your own co-op might help you articulate your own membership goals and help you guide members towards a stronger leadership role if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so let's look at a case study of a co-op that didn't do so well. So Co-op Atlantic formed in the 1920s to provide affordable goods to consumers in Canada's eastern provinces. The co-op was around for almost 100 years. And in 2014, it was doing over 600 million in sales. It provided wholesale groceries, fuel, and farm inputs to their co-op network. So similar to Arctic Co-op in terms of delivery, service delivery, and products. By 2015, the co-op was facing aggressive competition from Sobeys and Loblaws. There was some mounting debt, and there were some negative results from some bad business decisions. So these challenges and how leadership responded to them eventually led to the co-op's demise. So co-ops need the people involved in their governance to work together. And that means members, boards, managers, and staff all need to rely on each other. And successful co-ops create ways for these actors to work together effectively. And unfortunately, Co-op Atlantic did not. So they tried to turn their financially struggling stores around by amalgamating them. They created a new centrally managed organization to increase efficiency and manage the co-op's debt. They tried to then attract a broader market. So they switched their focus to low prices, and then sacrificed some of their customer service and patronage refunds. And not surprisingly, this strategy didn't work. So yes, it gave Co-op Atlantic better control over local stores and it might have been more efficient, but it alienated those same stores and their members. Alienating your core market is always a bad idea for business. So had Co-op Atlantic instead fostered a culture of trust and collaboration among their member retailers and individual consumers, they might have received that financial support and also those governance solutions from members. And that participation and investment and engagement. This sort of member engagement is critical to the survival of co-ops, especially in times of crisis. But instead of doing that, Co-op Atlantic centralized decision-making, thereby reducing loyalty, consolidating services, driving members really to its competitors. So big message here is when you lose your cooperativeness, you risk losing the very thing that made you special, the very thing that attracted members to you in the first place and made them loyal. So now I think that case study is a good segue into our next section. So what can we do as cooperatives when it comes to member engagement? So when we look at the obligations that co-ops have to their members, this is the absolute bare minimum. So you agree as a co-op to provide the agreed upon services or products. You have to hold an annual general meeting and board elections. You need to provide an annual report, including the financials, and you need to seek member approval on bylaw changes or other major issues. So a good member strategy does more than this, more than just the bare minimum. Your goal should be to help your members understand the co-op and their role in its success, again, connecting those dots, and provide flexibility and incentives for members to participate in the co-op. So when we look at member engagement, we're talking about three key elements. So how do you recruit members? How do you introduce them and onboard them? Get them excited, get them engaged from the beginning, and then how do you continue keeping them engaged? So how do you get that ongoing participation? So some tips for member recruitment: having a clear and consistent message when speaking to potential members can help. So think about, how are your staff, your board, and your members talking to others about your co-op? How is that messaging getting you closer to the goal? And what are you looking for? Are you looking to recruit members or clients? Are you looking for funding? Are you looking to build partnerships in your community? So getting all your front-facing people on the same page will help you reach your goals. Number two, having a clearly articulated value proposition. Of course, that's going to vary depending on who your members are and what your co-op does. But the bottom line is that members need to know what's in it for them. Your value proposition is your elevator pitch, and it's also your commitment to your members and your co-op in terms of what you deliver and how you deliver it. Offer incentives to join or incentives to recruit other members. And you know what? They don't always have to be financial in nature. So get creative, find ways to reward or show appreciation. Involving your membership can be an effective way to get people talking about your co-op and promote membership. They understand more than anyone what the benefits are. So use that to your advantage. Community outreach and awareness. Raise your profile in the community. Help people get to know your co-op. Every year, the University of Saskatchewan does a survey to figure out the top co-op issues. And this is self-reported by co-ops themselves. And every single year, we see in the top three, awareness. So making sure that people know who you are in your community and what you do is so important. This is the best way to connect with your potential member base. And this is also where those first two points come in, having a consistent message and a clear value proposition. So get out there. Get out there in industry-specific events, community gatherings, and festivals. Initiate or collaborate on partnerships with schools, with libraries, or other co-ops. And lastly, take a look at yourself. So when you're thinking about member recruitment, who are your members right now? Challenge yourself to think about who you're missing or who you're excluding. who else in your community might benefit from being part of your co-op. So reach out to groups that aren't represented and find out what you can do to be more inclusive and welcoming. Next, tips for member onboarding. So you've got that new member. How do you welcome them and get them engaged right from the beginning? So first, help members get to know your co-op. Provide your members with information, a handout, an email, a fact sheet, or maybe a video that explains the co-op model in general, gives them some background on your own co-op. Use storytelling, images, and other tools to personalize that message that helps them get to know you and start creating a deeper relationship and feel more invested in their membership. Communicate the roles and responsibilities of membership clearly. So let new members know what rights they have as a member, where to find that information. And when we looked at those different levels of engagement with them, creating a path and communicating it to them of how they can get more involved as a member, what that means for them, and what that means for the co-op, sets the tone from the start, and it shows all the ways that you're committed to your members, as they can commit to you. Mentor program. So especially for smaller co-ops, worker producer co-ops, that can help new members feel welcome and acclimatize them to a cooperative way of doing things, again, addressing that kind of learning curve, ongoing learning opportunities. So, those small, user-friendly learning opportunities to gradually increase understanding, awareness, build knowledge, can prevent them from being overwhelmed at the start as they start a new role with your organization or as they join you as a member. Again, incentivize, so recognition and appreciation for the time and effort taken to acquire new knowledge and skills. It doesn't have to be monetary, but it should be meaningful. And follow up, follow up, follow up. Create a scheduled check-in process for all new members. Find out how their member experience has been so far, see how they're doing, make them feel welcome. It's such a great learning opportunity to find out right from the start if there's any gaps that need to be addressed or if there's things you can do better. Again, doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. It can be an email or a quick follow-up survey. Remember that your relationship should be more than transactional. Building strong relationships that go beyond just the exchange of services really, again, sets that tone and creates a path to more loyal member base. And it really sets you apart from other service providers or businesses. And then tips for member participation. Super simple. Communication, transparency, regular communication, newsletters, town halls, member experience surveys, make information accessible, right? Think of languages, methods, and modes of communicating. And then track results, right? What's working, what's reaching your membership, what's not. Connection. So opportunities to connect with your members, member appreciation events, volunteer appreciation events, volunteer opportunities, Q&As or networking events with your board, with your staff, with other members. Create that community within your co-op. Make it easy, make it fun, make it personal, make it worth it for them to show up. And cultivate leadership. So education, training, information sharing is so incredibly important, especially when we think of that learning gap, right? That unlearning and relearning how to be cooperative, what it means to be cooperative, how you're different, how we're better as cooperatives. So, create a path for engagement and recognize accomplishments. So, the idea that co-ops reflect their members and that, it's a different way of doing business than what most of us are used to, but it is the reality and it is the identity of your business. It is the way that those who started your cooperative chose to structure the business. So you have a responsibility to uphold and embrace that way of doing business, both in the interests of your current and your future members. So it might take time to wrap our heads around and build relationships with our members or find the right ways to engage them. Your members are your greatest asset. And being able to access and leverage that power is a strength, should never be seen as a weakness or a burden. And when we look at examples of co-ops that have embraced their co-op nature, um, we see that um, celebrating membership and cooperativeness builds stronger and more resilient businesses. Um, it's important to find ways to communicate to your members that if they like the prices, the services, the workplace environment, whatever benefits that that co-op is providing them with, those benefits don't happen by accident. They exist because members before them and alongside them have built and guided and supported the co-op to operate in that way. So if we as leaders of co-ops and as members of co-ops want those benefits to continue or to expand, we need members to actively participate. So co-ops reflect the energy, the values, the participation of its members. And that's what helps co-ops thrive. And that's why participation isn't just a nice to have, it's essential to the long-term success and sustainability of any co-op. So quickly, we're just going to talk for a few minutes about that value proposition because it is such a key tool for communication for everyone in your co-op. It's something that people get to personalize. They get to share ideas and what they love about your co-op as they create that value proposition together, right? It's a great way, it's a great opportunity for different actors in your co-op to co-learn, to collaborate, to exchange ideas, and really foster a sense of pride and loyalty and solidarity within your co-op. It's such a great exercise on many different layers. And this is another workshop that I'll be providing for you so that you can use it with your own members or your team. And there's lots of options and resources available around creating value propositions. So find one that works best for you. So when it comes to crafting your value proposition, a few key steps, understanding the wants and needs of your community. What's going on? What does your community care about? What do people want? What are people worried about? And how do you find this out? By asking. So reach out, talk to members, staff, use surveys, send a Google form out, put some QR codes up in your co-op, put some paper copies out, do a town hall or focus group. Ask them the questions you want answers for because you'll never know if you don't ask. Or you may think you know, but you might be missing out on some important information. Next, identify what your co-op offers. So products, services, benefits your co-op provides, but don't forget to include those other benefits, community support and contributing to the local economy, quality of care, service, education and training opportunities, ownership benefits, flexible work environment, whatever it is. Third, highlight that unique co-op advantage. So what makes your business different from other businesses? And again, every co-op will be different. So when you do this step, think about what else your co-op brings to the table. You look at another business, when everything is equal, what else do you have on that table? Things like cooperative values and principles, ownership, democratic control, profit sharing, work-life balance, all those other things. Those are the things where often co-ops shine in comparison to other businesses. Connect those dots, right? So clearly show how your co-op helps members solve their problems, address their concerns, help them get the things that they want. So really you're matching up the wants and needs from the first step with those benefits expressed in the second and third steps. The last step, wrap it all up and tie it with a bow. Write a short, clear statement, 1 to 2 sentences. What you really want to communicate is the who's getting the value? It's your members. What value do they get? And why are you better or unique in a co-op context? And this is the best part. It's where your staff or whoever you're doing this with, your members, your board, have some room to personalize. And it's amazing to see how different people highlight what they're most proud of or what resonates most deeply with them. Allowing for this flexibility ensures that when they share this value proposition with others and they're talking to other people, it really feels authentic and that will shine through. So final thoughts. Ask members for their feedback, listen, and be responsive. You can't reasonably implement every single member idea, but looking for recurring themes, common complaints, then addressing them is how you stay relevant and continue to meet the evolving needs of your membership. Offer something for almost everyone. So again, finding different ways for members to get involved with your co-op. Some members will need to be encouraged to engage on even the most basic level, and some will be all in. Make sure you have opportunities available for all of those different members. And make sure they know about them. Do more than the minimum. So really making an effort to understand your members. If you're struggling with member engagement or recruitment, find out why. Ask your members, ask your staff, what are they hearing? Make getting involved easier for members who might have limited time and resources. Find out what's important to them and make engagement worth the effort. Do more than the minimum. When planning opportunities for member engagement or interaction, make it fun, make it interesting, and make it rewarding. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this. Never view your responsibility to your members as a burden. Your co-op exists because of your members, and they are your greatest asset, especially in challenging times. So recognize the strength of your members, engage them, and make them feel valued. And that will play a key role in your co-op's continued success. So thank you all very much. It's right at 1 o'clock, but I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes. If there's any questions or comments that anyone would like to share.